You had other countries who had stake in America. It wasn't just the 13 colonies and the founding fathers. So you need to get this out your head, black people, African Americans, that everybody wanted slavery. Because obviously they abolished slavery in the North, and then after the Civil War, slavery was completely abolished. But you need to know that there was white people who was fighting for your freedom because they knew and they fought and they served with African Americans who were geniuses, who played pivotal roles in the success and the freedom of America. And you need to know that. So stop walking around with all this pent up anger thinking that, everybody just hated black people and the founding fathers was for slavery and this and that. You had black people there who served with Washington, who served with Thomas Jefferson, who did amazing things in America, and you have no clue because they're not telling it to you, because you're not looking for it. So seriously, we got to start doing this research. You need to start to understand the accomplishments of African American people. So yes, of course, I want African Americans to understand the role that we play here in America, that we play a pivotal role in the success of America, that we play pivotal roles throughout the history of America. We built this country with slave labor. Europeans, white people got rich off of, the backs, the death, the pain, the suffering of African people. And that's just the truth. We can see their wealth all around us today, but you need to understand the history behind it, because, we take a lot of stuff. We get a lot of backlash. We take a lot of crap about us playing, fictional roles. Johnny Storm and Rue from the Hunger Games. I mean, look at The Wiz. People got upset saying, this is an all black cast, but they forget that the original Wizard of Oz was an all white cast. Wasn't no black people in that movie. So people get upset. We take a lot of backlash. Now, if Spike Lee did a movie about George Washington and he cast, Denzel Washington as good old George, then, they would get upset. But they can go ahead and they can take Europeans, they can take white people and cast them as, pharaohs, as ancient Egyptians. They can show the ancient Egyptians, walking around and the people being white, the civilization being white, and they don't put in there anything about a black, pharaoh. They can do that because they run Hollywood. They put money behind their deception. And I'm talking about the movie industry. I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about people who know what they're doing. I'm talking about a system that has billions of dollars that they don't mind spending to cover up our success. That's what I'm talking about. You need to understand that. We got to really start. Learning, what we have accomplished as African people. We really got to start putting this information out there and educating our children, to the success, because, they are covering it up. They cover it up well, and they spend money to do so. Now, I get this question a lot. A lot of people say this all the time. If the ancient Egyptians were so great, if African people did so many great things and were so successful, what happened? How did they get conquered? What happened to the ancient Egyptians? How did that civilization get, taken over by the Persians and the Greeks? What happened? And, I tell them the same thing that you've seen today. The same stuff. I mean, just look at Syria, for example. You have this whole ISIS coming into the country. Same thing with Iraq, we can say. Coming into the country and taking over. So what happens is what? Fear. People scared to die. People scared to fight. It's the same thing. People scared. So if it's an army that's coming in and invading our country, 1,000 people, right? It's 1 million of us. But you only got 100 people that's saying, okay, let's go get these bastards. Let's fight for our country. And they go to fight and they turn around and look. And, everybody else standing behind them, scared to fight. What can they do? 100 people can't go fight 1,000 people. It's stupid. So you got to make a choice. Either you can go die, or you can go join the rest of the people, put your head down and flee. And that's what took place. You had an invading civilization who came in there. Now, when the Persians invaded, you had, for about 70 years, you had a civil war. You had the people in Egypt fighting back against the Persians until, they overwhelmed them and there's nothing they could do. But that's basically what took place. Fear. The people got scared. They didn't fight. They didn't come together. Instead of us coming together and fighting, what are we doing? We arguing and bickering back and forth about black, white, and stupid shit. Hip hop battles. That's what happened to those civilizations. You know, they got controlled with fear. You know, if a bunch of troops came into Philadelphia or came into your state, you know, right now, and they start killing people, but then some people, they say, you know, go get in this truck or go here. I mean, what are you going to do? You're either going to get your gun and fight, or you're going to listen to them. You're going to listen to them. You're going to put your head down and say, okay, and do what they tell you to do. And that's what took place back then. A lot of people just shut up. They wanted to save their own ass. They didn't want to fight for their country. They didn't want to fight for their freedom. And, you know, it was fear. Fear took over. And I can't blame people for wanting to, you know, you got a family. You got kids to feed. You got kids to worry about. You can't go fight. Everybody can't do it. But you need to understand the same thing is taking place today. The same thing. I mean, when you just look at, you know, the animal kingdom, you have a herd of buffalo. We're talking about hundreds of buffalo down there drinking water. Probably 4 or 5 lions come out and scare the whole herd away. They all go running, scattering all over the place, running. And you're like, why? I mean, just beat them. Just come together. All they got to do is turn around and say, no, we ain't taking this shit no more. You ain't eating another buffalo. You ain't eating another buffalo today. So imagine, I'll be just waiting for it to happen. I'll be like, yo, they're going to turn around one day. I know it's going to happen. They're going to turn around one day and say, you know what, this shit is over. And they're going to attack those lions. You know, but it never happens. They all go running all crazy. And that one poor buffalo, you know, gets attacked and gets eaten in front of everybody while they running, when they could just go save it. And that's what happened back then. That's what happened. That's what's happening now. We got people like me, people like you, those of you who watch these videos and you share them, who putting the information out, and we fighting hard trying to wake people up, but they don't care. They rather go cut and run. You know, they don't care. They're not willing to fight. They're not even willing to watch a video. That's how much people don't care. They don't even want to watch the information. They don't want to pick up a book. So this is what happened back then. This is what happened to, you know, ancient Egypt, to a lot of these advanced African civilizations. It's fear. Fear conquers all. I mean, imagine the Europeans coming into those African civilizations with their guns, you know, shooting up stuff, blowing up stuff. You know, the Africans couldn't even fathom, they couldn't envision of making a weapon of such destruction because it wasn't in them. You talk about a spiritual people, lived off the land. They invited the Europeans in and they taught them, showed them things. They could never envision them doing what they did to them. And that's the thing, you know, you get, you know, I've had white people say, you know, survival of the fittest, man, you know, get over it. You know, the white race, dominant race, and we took over, survival of the fittest. And I mean, it's outrageous. People get real dark when you get into it because you can argue back and forth. But when it comes down to it, you had a group, a government of Europeans basically wipe out innocent people. And that's what happened. It's conquest. They took over. That's what happened. I mean, you can look at it as a, you know, a manly way and say, you know, beat your chest and say, you know, we're strong. Or you can look at it and say, you know, and that's fucked up. That's evil. These people crazy. They sick. I can't believe they did that. Now, most people would disagree with the actions of the Europeans. They would disagree with it. Anybody who got any kind of empathy, you know, they would disagree with the actions of the Europeans, and they would say, you know, that's messed up what they did. But you get people who say, you know, survival of the fittest, you know, and Africans, we got what we deserve somehow, because they are ignorant about history, because they think that we was just savages running around butt naked. We was going to kill ourselves anyway, and we had no kind of sophistication. So as I said, I wanted to put this video out to get people to understand, you know, the accomplishments of African people, not just in Africa, but also in America as well. I mean, we contributed so much to this country, to America. I mean, a black man, Dr. Charles Drew, came up with the whole concept of a blood bank. I mean, blood banks save lives every day. So many people, probably one of you, your life has been saved because of the work that blood banks do. Seriously. And this is the African American person who came up with the concept. We need to really start looking at our history and learning it, and not being, you know, backed down by people who say, we were primitive savages. People who come up with this information. I mean, these people have a whole ideology that we was nothing, that we ain't do nothing, we ain't accomplish anything, we was just savages. People really believe that. And it's amazing to me that when people are saying it, I mean, I read in the comment section sometimes. I read the comments, by the way. People debating in the comment section talking about, the accomplishments of African people. And I look and I read and I see that, a lot of people don't got no comeback. When you get these racist people who come into the comment section and say, we didn't do shit, we was just monkeys. We didn't accomplish anything. And I'm like, I don't like to jump into people conversations a lot in the comment section. But I'm like, damn, you need to understand what we have done, what we have accomplished, what we can prove that we have accomplished. Because we can prove this stuff. We got the proof. It's still there. You have Europeans who wrote that we accomplished these things, which is why I always say I'm not here to shun all white people, to say all white people is evil. That's not me. You're not going to get me saying that. Because like I said, I know too many good white people. But you get Europeans who say it themselves. Hey, these people, not all Europeans, these people, this government did this to these Africans. These African people was great. They did this. They accomplished that. And this is what happened to them. We got to start writing these stories ourselves. We got to start putting this information out ourselves. Seriously. We got to start doing the work. At least know it. I mean, at least get the books and read it. I mean, you have people, this whole conscious community somehow got this whole notion. I don't know where it starts from that. It works in some cases. But this whole notion that if you read a book that was written by a white man, it's no good. Because he only wrote it to deceive everybody. Every white person wrote their book to deceive black people. And that's not the case. Because Dr. Ben would tell you himself, if he was still here, that he got a lot of his information from white scholars. I mean, where else you going to find the information? We were slaves. I mean, a lot of the books that got written about, we didn't know this information. You had independent people who went to these countries, who did the research on their own and wrote a book. And that's the thing. This is where you hide the information. The book is out there and you think somebody's reading it. You think it should be taught in your children's school, but it's not. So you got to go learn it. It's a wealth of information out there that we just don't know about because we don't know that somebody wrote the book. We don't know the book exists. When I go to the library, kid in the candy store, especially when I find a book that I didn't know nothing about. Information I never heard of. I'm like, wow, who is this dude? And 9 times out of 10, a lot of the times, unfortunately, the author is European. And I got to give him credit for doing what he did because he gave the Africans credit. He ain't say, oh, the Europeans taught the Africans how to do this stuff. And a lot of these books that I put up on the screen, you'll see when you read them, they praise the Africans. They are amazed by what the Africans accomplished. Amazed. And they shun the actions of the Europeans. These are white people who wrote these books. You need to understand that. You need to understand that it's not everybody out here trying to cover up our history. And I always go into this because, it's real easy for us to get upset. African Americans to get upset and look at this stuff and start looking at this information and saying, fuck white people and I'm mad at white people. And we get upset at every single white person instead of getting upset at the government who is behind, destruction of African civilization. There's governments that did this stuff. White people had no clue either. They obviously don't know. They don't know.
My friend Rika Drew sent me one of Glenn Beck's shows, the Founding Fathers things he does, and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit just because I agree with some of what Glenn Beck says, but he's a little bit too much for me. But I started to watch it anyway, and it was about how black people in our history that had a lot to do with the way the founding of this country and what went on during the founding of this country had basically been eliminated from history books. And it did 2 things. It made me very emotional. Just because so many black people, including black people I know, only think that great things started with Martin Luther King or, I don't know how to put it. If anything in here comes across as insulting, it is not intended to be. This was just fascinating to me, not just because of the fact that these, like Frederick Douglass and other people who of course their names escape me at this point, but just how important they were to the founding of this country and how easily it was to just destroy them. Or not destroy them, but make them irrelevant. It's sad. It's sad because that means there are many groups of black people that grew up only thinking their only history in this country was as being slaves. I'm sorry I'm looking all over the place, but I'm trying to gather my thoughts because this really got to me. But that's what most black people have been taught, is that up until they were freed as slaves, up until Martin Luther King and the fight for civil rights, that's when the fight for civil rights started, and that's really where a lot of black history started. I mean, I know people know about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, but the stuff as far as that was all stuff with black people fighting against the government, or fighting against slavery is what I mean, fighting against the government. Whereas these were stories about black people actually wanting to be Americans and being proud of being Americans. And that's not something I ever remember hearing. And I can understand how a group of people, and I'll say it one more time, I don't mean this in any way to be insulting, but I can understand how if I was a member of a group of people, that the only thing I was ever taught as far as my relation to America was that I was a slave and I had to fight just to be treated like a human being, I wouldn't like that country very much. But if I knew that there were black people that after they were freed wanted to be Americans and were proud to be Americans and worked for this country and worked to do great things in this country, I think that would change some people's feelings. Now, it wouldn't change the perception of the way people are treating them now, and that's a whole other video. But it's had an impact on me, and I'm a white person. Let me put it that way. I'm a white dude, in case you haven't noticed. And just hearing that, Abraham Lincoln was meeting with some of these black people and asking their opinions. I never heard that. The only thing I knew about Abraham Lincoln having to do with black people for the most part was owning slaves and freeing slaves. That is on a totally different level than actually talking to black people on an equal level and asking for help. That was just fascinating information to me. And it makes me understand why, if someone intentionally took this out of history books, if they did that, why they would, because it makes black people feel separate from this country. And maybe that's what they wanted when they took this information out, was to make black people not feel like part of the country and to make white people not feel like black people were part of the country. That they were just this group of people that were slaves that got freed and just had to be integrated, instead of a group of people that really wanted to be Americans. Like I said, this obviously got to me. It got to me and made me very emotional. But I'm trying to keep, you see, I just say the word emotional, and emotions come up. Because it's just messed up. And I feel bad not having known this. It's important. I'm trying to be a better person, as everyone knows, but I also want to be knowledgeable about my own history and about my own country and why I love my country and why I like to be an American. And part of that is that a lot of the people that were brought here as slaves when they were freed decided, or were the descendants of people that were brought here as slaves, whatever, that decided they wanted to be Americans. That there were actually white people back in the day that worked with them. It wasn't just slaves versus white people, or former slaves versus white people, which is the way I feel history was presented to me when I was growing up. I think that's all I need to say. Once again, I will put up links to these videos. Anyone that watches this and can't stand Glenn Beck, I don't really like him a lot either. But trust me, the information, and maybe you already maybe you're more educated than me and you knew everything he's going to say. Fine. I didn't know it. And it was fascinating. So once again, this is the third ending. I feel like this is like Lord of the Rings or something. I'm going to put up links, and that's that. Great videos, great information, and great to know that black people played a more important part to American history than just what I learned in school.
They don't know. They had no clue that we have contributed so much to the world. Not just, material things, but the white man himself, the Asian themselves. They come from us. As I have explained in the previous video, we ain't just contribute materials, we contributed them. Wasn't getting no white man without a black man. Wasn't getting no Asian without a black woman. So, yeah, you get people who are appreciative of that. You get people who look at the research and look at the information and they see without prejudice, without bias, just based strictly on truth, that African people contributed more to this world than any other civilization on the planet. African people, not only did we give birth to every race on the face of the earth, but we contributed more than any other race. And when you say that to people today, I mean, it's just an automatic no, or automatic you crazy. And people can't fathom it, but it's plain to see. And we still contributing so much to the world today. As I said, Africa feeds the world, and that's just not a slogan. That is proven fact. You need to pay attention and look at it. Like I said, I always get on these Hebrews trying to get you to give up Africa for dusty ass Israel. They can have it. No way in the world I would give up Africa. Y'all crazy. The history and the culture there, the wealth. And they can't see that this is obviously a ploy by, some European to get you to give up Africa and turn your back on Africa, which a lot of you have already. So yeah, again, this was my video, and I hope people learned a lot from this video. And I've been busy. I get a lot of messages, a lot of comments down there. I can't answer them all. The views, thanks to you, or I should say the subscribers, thanks to you guys, has gone up a lot. And it's tough to get at everybody, so I try to answer as many comments and questions as possible. I try to go through it. Of course, I'm busy. Just got back home to America. I'm back in Philly, and you know how that go. I family members I haven't seen in years, and they want to do stuff. They want to go out and hang out, stuff like that. So I've been running around and doing all kinds of stuff, and chilling. But of course, I'm gonna keep putting out videos and keep doing what I'm doing. I have some new videos coming up soon, and hopefully this opened the eyes of a lot of people who had no clue. And you can see the accomplishments of African people, here and abroad. And it's not just in Africa and in America. I'm talking about in Canada. Hidden Colors talked about hockey. How many people knew that? Black people invented hockey. I mean, somewhere, some white guy's head is exploding. Boom. What do you mean black people invented hockey? I mean, not just in Canada and America and Africa. We can go South America. I mean, look at the Olmec. I mean, we can go Mexico. We can go China. We can go Japan. And the accomplishments of African people is everywhere. You need to start learning it and understanding it. Now, this is my video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next video.